Hello, beautiful souls. It's been a very long time since I've done a video, like a full-length one, and I have a lot to say. So in that case, it might be difficult for me to organize my mind in the way that I would like it to be. And also because these are impromptu and I'm, just sitting out here in a parking lot, a little bit harder for me to focus. So first of all, I want to catch up on what I'm going through or been through. A lot of spiritual attacks, but I've gotten used to them now. I can tell what's going on when it happens because the order and the things that it does and what order it does it in are things that I've suffered on and off my whole life. And I don't mean that it's a condition that I have, but when these conditions come up that don't make any sense, have been happening for so very long in my life, with black magic casting in my own family from the time I was in my early 30s on up. So when that happens and you've been exposed to it for so many years, you start to feel the symptoms. It's kind of like, oh, well, I'm coming down with a cold, or I'm coming down with this, or I'm getting a cold sore and it tingles first before it breaks out. Stuff like that. And I'm not going to go into the description of what happens to me. I've said a few things before. But, lately for my own protection, because the person that was dealing with me, the MK Ultra actual unicorn that takes life force, he does, Qigong negatively, in reverse, and he uses black magic and actual magic. So when he realized that he couldn't completely wipe my brain and that I was becoming immune to the attacks, which was what I had planned and knew that I had to do in order to escape this group, that he sent from the outside another practitioner that he's known for a long, long time, and his family's known for a long time, who's a Satanist. So basically, like, the gang stick together, and I talk about how there's a Rastafarian group, and he was really PO'd at that group and said, they're not even Rastafarians. And I'm like, no, duh, because real Rastafarians, sorry to say, are not Satanists or Luciferians. They're just hiding behind that. And they literally, as I've said before, use other women sleeping around a ton, collecting energy from other women so that they remain looking in that irie state. And it's not because they've worked hard to stay happy. It's because they're a gang. They've made it work for them, So spiritual gangs, they don't care about God and regular spiritual things. They only care about what they get in the end, what they get out of it in the end. And that's who they are. So all of these teachings come from ancient Egypt, where people began to use the knowledge and wisdom of the Neters, the angels under God, to become kings or eternal kings. And these eternal kings, the contracts were made with fourth dimensional creatures, or whatever you want to call the fallen angels from Mount Ararat, the 200 fallen. So when our energy fell, and I've mentioned this before, when man fell, when Adam and Eve fell, this whole world fell that these angels were working in. So I don't hate fallen angels. I was brought up to hate them, and I understand now, and I don't hate anything created of love, source, and soul. But these people went against the soul and went against the source and went against their leader because they were lusting, because they were in a fallen state. And so them considering themselves slightly above humans and better than humans blame humans for the state of the world. And they told God from the beginning they didn't want to submit to these people, which is why they revolted with their shaitan, their negative energy. And they became what they were. Or so the story goes. We use stories to get across these things that are fourth dimensional. Angels are fourth dimensional. The ones that are here, fallen anyways. And then there's a dimension above them in a human being, which is the fifth dimension, the dimension of the heart, the dimension of the Christ. Whether you think that story is real, it's a dimensional experience wherein the body begins to change from one state to another. The Bible speaks of it as the new man, not like the Christians think that you say a 5-minute prayer, you get whapped on the head and receive the Holy Ghost from your pastor, which generally in that case I've talked about is demonic, and he's collecting energy these days. That's how it is these days. We're in a fallen shaitan season. So leaders are generally always going to be fallen beings, especially if they're rich and famous. Sorry if you don't like how it is, but it is. Now, Christian eschatologists want to say we're not in Satan's little season because we have access to the fifth dimension and the Christ and the Christos, and whatever you want to think, you go ahead and think that. I really don't give a crap if nominal Christians, because I consider them Christian nationalists, most all of them don't understand what receiving the Holy Ghost is, and that it's a work, and you have to work through the fourth dimension and demonic attacks literally within people, within yourself and in your environment to go through the chrysalis stage where you become full of the Holy Ghost and enlightened. Whatever your religion calls that, to mystics it is all the same. And I use the word of Christ and the letter and the knowledge and the wisdom of Christ to portray that language to you, to tell you what's happening to me and what has happened to me, because that was the language I was raised using, and I was able to resurrect that and use it within myself as a true principle to get to know my own soul. My own soul I got to know apart from any doctrine and any belief system. It was just I was being attacked by this cult and these fourth dimensional creatures, and as I've said before, I pressed into my soul and just kept saying, I love you, because I knew I was going to die or go mad, because that's what they do to you. So I just, hey, nothing to lose. I love myself. I don't care if anyone that I've known my whole life destroys me as they've tried to do. I love myself. And see, and that's what it takes in this time where the energy is so low, to love, truly love on one's own soul, not gangster, holy BS trickery, which is what these dead kings want and teach, and these gangs that are all over the world now using these principles in order to attack and destroy people, but to press into your own soul. So once that fifth dimensional soul space is congruent, open, the chakra, whatever, you want to use Buddhism or whatever you believe in, to convey that language, convey it as you do. My chakra on my 7 angels, they're the 7 lampstands that stand always before God, which is my soul, and I'm not one iota separate from my source, the creator of my soul, this matter that is eternal and is one with source. When all goes back to source, I'll be one with source. Now that might sound a little Masonic and a little whatever, but no, I don't want anything to do with those groups. They've all fallen. And so the place to be is within oneself, using the language that one can use to portray this teaching and truth to the best of your ability, to the best of that you can with the people you come in contact with in this world. So that is what I do. So, this actual unicorn cult leader that is the collector of energy for multiple cults and sells people's energy, sent yet another practitioner after me, and the same thing happened that happened to him. He fell in love with my energy. They don't fall in love with you. They don't like you. They want to destroy you, even if they desire you, okay? Because the being within them is going through the same transmutational process the fourth dimensional creature. So in my ancestry, as I've talked about, yeah, I am being, but talked about before, and I'm talking about spiritually being stalked by these things. Once they get a taste of your energy and your destiny and all this, they want it because they cannot live without a connection to source. Though they hate source for allowing them to fall, to be here in a fallen place with a fallen nature, which some of them still have the ability to go into the fifth, sixth, seven other dimensions. They can't go into the inner court of God, but they can come before the presence and ask for things and communicate with God to some degree. The Christ principle has pushed them further out and further away. So they use all these demonic and witchcrafty, whatever way you want to call it, and I'm just using my own words, to talk all about the energy that consists outside of the field of matter, which you are and we are. So these things can go to the outer courts, so to speak, of these other realms, but they have to abide by all things due, the dimension, the rules of the dimension, or the energetic sphere, I prefer to call it, that they're communicating with and in. So they can go before the presence of soul and try to put their sin on the soul of another, and take that soul and take their innocence, put the soul in a bardo, so to speak, which is like a water dimension, a fourth dimension. And then they use the energy of these souls saying, oh, they don't die. And they don't. It's like a prison or a holding space. And those people are there being held until the time when these other energies are vanquished. And of course, because they're completely deluded after all this time, thinking that they're, the kings of kings and the god of gods, demigods, G, small g, they can't be reasoned with, and they fall in love with certain angelic energies that are attached to you via the soul space. So to me, I'm attached to my soul, which means I'm directly attached, tethered to the soul of God via myself. We all are, but we've got to wake up to that and be reborn to that water, that dimension, that purpose. And then when we don't doubt that, our bodies begin to change from this stage where once certain chakra is open, the being becomes more and more spirit, Holy Ghost, or gaseous. And it's a physical process that you can find out through Buddhism, through Tantra, through Christian mystics, through any mystic. So these are real physical things I'm speaking about. They're not just spiritual things, but we have to use spiritual physical language to cross over, because you can't see energy unless I'm here in front of you like moving objects and shit. And in that case, I don't want to do anything like that on this earth until I'm called to do that via my Holy Ghost, because then people stalk you and want you even more. And the government gets involved in the NK ultra demonic BS, which is what all this stuff is anyways. So what happens is when you go in and out of certain dimensions, either you're going to be blocked from going in and out of that dimension if you break rules, or that dimension is going to want to absorb you, and something else that has been sitting in the bardo or is in control of it, demonic realms, is going to take over your vessel. And the more you do what it says, the more it's going to promise you can be like one of these eternal kings, blah, 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 blah. And have all this power, the more it's going to take over you. And the more it controls you, the less of the you are, but the more physical power you have, and you get deluded by that power, and you go crazy like them, because they're insane. If a human being were to live eternally hopping from body to body, they would eventually go insane and not give a care about human life or anything to do with human nature. Oh, well, like the people said to me, they're not dead. Yeah, no, they're just sitting in this place that they're not human, and they're also no longer divine. They're just sitting there waiting for a time to be judged with all the other energies. And some of these people will escape the bardo. Spirit has told me about that. And even some of the people who have come against me, they will. And as much as whatever they are, they still have a soul. And so at the end of the day, even if they deserve imprisonment here or torment and all the torment they put me and many other women and souls and possibly children through also, and taking innocence, it's not really literally that person. So that person, there's a possibility that their soul can be still, as Christians would say, saved, or the matter of the soul, their eternal flame, not completely lost. And that's the end of the game for me. I don't care about the rest of any of the stories. I have had to learn to love and let go of everything that's been done to me and is being done to me, which not only protects me and helps me to stay in touch with the ancestors and angels and mentors and guides, because if they're in touch with God, they're in touch with me via the soul space. There is no separation. So in order to keep my protection up, I have to stay in this place where the ultimate space is forgiveness. And my ultimate goal as an angelic being, meaning only that I'm not an angel like other people think of it, but we use this to talk about the properties of our chakra as we become the new man and more of the Holy Ghost and more of the ego, and the I steps out of the way. And the third eye, is uncovered from black magic and witchcraft, which is the fourth dimension we all got to go through here. As our energy goes up above these things, they have to submit to us. And this is the stage when they often become what other people would say, there's a spirit in love with you. It's not in love with you. It's attached to you, and it's attached to the fact that you're attached physically to the source of the Most High, and it needs that. Yet it can't come before the Most High for it. It can only persecute you for it, like it did to Job. If you want to know what that story is and you've never heard of it, read Job in the Bible. So I've kept up a lot of my videos where I go through being broken down and built up and broken down and built up. Why? Because I want people to know about demonic stuff and how I used to want to destroy the whole world. Well, I had that in me. No, I want people to see how much a human being can change when their original nature is activated via Source and God and the Holy Ghost, which is in every single one of us are capable of holding, without taking and tormenting souls of the innocent and taking their energy. Now, do I still take energy? Nope. Now I hold space in my heart. So when someone's aggressively attacking me in the external world, or when I'm driving, I just put my energy into the center of my chest. I look at them, but I focus on my center. So where's the energy going? And my Merkava is being circulated and built up and built up and built up. It's not like I'm attaching and locking into their soul space to get energy. I don't do that anymore. And I don't need to, because your soul is your eternal well. Like the Bible talks about this well. You'll be like a well like a tree planted by the rivers of waters, or you're like a living well. Spring up a well within my soul. That's what all that Christian word is speaking of, which sadly many of them don't know the word, the true words, nor the understanding. They've only taken it, made it into a religion, and obliterated it. And that's because we are in this satanic season where the energy, where you want to call it a Kali age or whatever. I don't believe we're in Kali. I do believe we're in Dvapar, and I don't even know how to pronounce that. But I believe that that's a time period moving into the Tetra Yuga when we have to deal with angels and demons on the same plane. I also believe that they added 1,012 years on each side of that wheel. And that's what those people do, because that is their religion and that is their belief system. Which also, if you listen to Sadhguru now, and he's coming out and saying all the things I said years ago, And basically that we're getting to the place where humans will be able to speak to each other mind to mind. And when that happens, a lot of stuff is being exposed, and a lot of people are losing their sanity because they don't know what's happening to them. Basically, you just got to love yourself and keep upping your energy, because you will be invaded by other people's thoughts, and it will not be schizophrenia. And you will have to listen to and hear these demonic plans and these demonic beings who love to plan. They're all being exposed, and their plans are being exposed in front of everybody. So the revelation in a way is happening, but I believe the revelation of Christ already happened, and that we're in Satan's little season. The 1,000-year reign already existed. I can see it in the Roman and zigguratic structures that have been destroyed all over the place here in New England and other places. And I can see it, and when we had this time of Christ, which we're told was the Kali Yuga, the Dark Ages, it wasn't. It was the Byzantine Empire, when everyone that was living had access to extremely high energy, and some people call it Tartaria. And it's kind of weird because Tartaria is also interdimensionally something different from here. But as I said, right now, the dimensions are kind of in the same place, or like past tense times of interdimensional stuff is overlapping here so that we begin to see things. So it's very hard to explain to hardline Christians who want explanations for everything, or for anyone who's too into science, explanations for anything. Even though science has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that everything here is malleable. And we're in a season, even astrologically, where it's very Neptunian and everything's very malleable. But we're coming out of the lower end of that, and we're getting into the upper end of that, where in a Tetra Yuga, we'll all be like we're angels, and we'll live out the next so many thousand years of the reign of this earth as a place before we all go back to God, which is like they say 11,500 to 12,600 year cycles, depending on whose timeline you follow and whether or not you believe time was added. These fourth dimensional creatures did get their piece of the pie, all right? But it wasn't the Kali Yuga. That's the lie. It's lied to the India, it's lied to us, it's lied to the whole world. Even if you go back and look at the structures built in India 1,000 years ago, they were amazing, crazy, wonderful temples. So, for them to say that that was a time period when the energy was the lowest doesn't even make sense to me. Like, I think we're coming out of the lower. Since the 1700s, we've been in the next yuga, which I can't even pronounce right. And that yuga starts off with a fourth dimensional kind of craziness and a breakdown and a little season of the demons. They have their piece of the pie, and then we in the upper angelic system have a piece of our pie, and then we move into Tetra Yuga, if you want to call it that. So the wheel is basically going sort of backwards and mirroring what happened in the time before. So from the time of the Genesis on the Jewish calendar, Genesis to the flood, to the recreation of the earth, to the time of Abraham, would be one side of this wheel descending. Now on this side of the wheel, it's going to go up. So we're heading toward the way things were at creation in the time of Adam and Eve and when they fell. Adam and Eve, if you want to look at the wheel as a real thing, would have fallen from Tetra Yuga into Dvarpa Yuga realm energies, and that was not just Adam and Eve, one male and female, as far as I'm concerned. It was a kingdom on this earth. It was an angelic realm where angels and humans lived together. They lived, serving God together, which was the Kali Yuga, or this little Byzantine time before Christ. Now, if you want to flip out and say, the Byzantine Empire, and it was the Christians that destroyed that, blah, 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 blah. No, it's energy. So if the energy was evil, whether it took the name of Christian or Krishna, or whoever you want to say it took the name of, it was a golden age, no matter whose name it took, and then it became an evil one, and obviously European Christianity has been evil AF. I mean, the empire we're in the United States is an evil Christian empire. So I'm going to stop here just because, I don't want to make the videos too long.